man, I just finally had a chance to get out on a great day. You know, it's going to be in the 90s today, so I wanted to get out as early as possible to be able to do some riding around and just enjoy being on the cycle again. You know, it's been a while since I've been on this bike and been able to chance to record. A variety of things have been going on, you know how it is, you know, family stuff, and then the aches and pains of getting older. So I've had my own little issues to deal with recently, so I haven't been able to be on the bike as much as I'd like. But it feels good to be on it right now, even in a little bit of a heat. You know, been an interesting winter too. I went through on this cycle that I'm riding now, and I've done a lot of major work to it. You know, I went through, as for those of you who follow me on Instagram, you may have noticed that I've actually gone through, I've dismantled it, I've taken apart and completely cleaned the carburetors, I've reset the valves, I've swapped out some hoses, let's see, I've switched out the gas filter, you know, so I've done a lot of different things that are considered significant work that you have to take the bike apart. And you know, it was really an enjoyable experience. But you know, like anything else, you know, you find a situation you run into where you have to have a new tool, or you always have to order a new part, and that's what happened to me too. But you know, for somebody like me that doesn't have much more than an hour and a half at a time, if that, sometimes 15-20 minutes to do much tinkering out in the garage, I was pretty proud that I was able to do this within the time frame I set for myself. I do have one more thing I have to do to this bike, but I don't think it's too far off, but I have to resync the carbs, and maybe I'll make a video on that. But when I resync the carbs, it's just a matter of checking the vacuum hoses to make sure that both carbs are releasing the same amount of air and the same amount of fuel, etc. So I have to do that next. Get through this. You know, so really all I have left to do on this bike is I want to resync the carburetors. That's one thing. They're not off that far. I could tell just anytime you take a carburetor off of an engine and you put it back on, you always want to go through and resync it, you know, just to make sure. You know, the human ear doesn't tell you anything, but when you hook it up to the right equipment, it'll tell you if everything is synchronized between the two carburetors. Now, I have a V-twin, that's why I have to do that. For those of you who have maybe a smaller engine with a single carburetor, it's not something you have to worry about. And additionally, if you have fuel injection, you never have to worry about this. So you're all in good shape, you know, as far as that. But for those of you who have V-twins or multiple carburetors on your engine, you definitely have to do a resync every once in a while, especially if you're doing any kind of carb work at all, and if it involves taking it off the engine. But so far the bike runs much better. Last year, you know, I was towards the end of riding season and everything, I was really struggling because I was trying to understand. I was really struggling with it because I could tell that it was having a hard time idling and staying started, which is telling me that the carbs were getting kind of filthy. So kind of this year, after I cleaned it, which is normal, you know, you get bad gas, you get different things like that, but one thing I want to do this year is I want to clean it out a little more thoroughly, more so by putting fuel additive and things like that in there and letting it flush it out intermittently. To the bike, I'm really, make sure that's set up right, I'm really psyched about it because I think I have it all adjusted and everything for any future trips I may take when this pandemic lifts and when some of the other things fall into place and I get some more time. Come on, Mr. Green Light. I've never been down that road. I should take that road sometime. Gosh, it's hot out here. You know, I've talked about in the past ways I'm staying cool. Like I mentioned here, today, being in the 90s, I've got this ice pack on me, you know, just sitting up against my belly. but you know, it's helped out and everything. But one other thing that my bike struggles with sometimes is heat. I don't know if anyone knows this or if anyone has the same thing. I think if you have a carbureted engine, you probably do. But my bike's air cooled, so when I'm riding around like this, it requires it to stay moving to stay cool because it's ventilated. It's not water cooled. So if I sit in traffic in this bike, it always runs the risk of overheating, particularly when you're talking about 90 plus weather. So I ride it anyway, and I have to remember to keep it cool. But in these hotter days, I tend to try to ride, especially in these hotter days, I try to ride more rural settings to where I'm not in stop and go traffic as much, and I'm moving, because even if I'm, oh, that's a nice house right there, even if I'm you know, going, you know, to the market or something like that, you know, if I take the bike, I try not to do that as much in this hotter weather. It's more geared now towards these types of rides where I can do 30, 40 and high faster, and I'm not stopping and going as much, because now I get the airflow that I need to keep my engine cool. For those of you that have not fuel injection, but water-cooled engines, you don't have to worry about this as much. And what I found with a V-Star is everything after, I think it's either 2005 or 2006 is when they started to move towards fuel injection and I believe water-cooled engines. So the newer bikes don't have these types of problems, but the older bikes like this one that's starting to become more of a classic or an antique will struggle with the heat. So I have to constantly keep it moving. But I like this bike anyway. This is a 2003 V-Star. When I bought it, I upgraded knowing that this is the bike I really always wanted. You know, the style of it kind of is an older school cruiser style, but you know, it had the extra boost and power that my older bike didn't have, and I knew when I bought it I was going to have it for a long time. I didn't see this as a transition bike. The bike I had before it was my transition bike. This one I knew I was going to keep possibly until I stopped riding. It doesn't mean I'm not going to get a new one in the future. I may end up getting another one someday in the future, you never know. But as of right now, I'm really still just planning on keeping this bike. But I must admit, I have been starting to get interested in some of the other bikes that I've seen. You know, some of these newer models, like I see some of the newer BMWs coming out, and some of the newer Yamahas, even the newer V-Star that I've seen. Just the newer Star model, I'm sorry, of Yamaha, I think are really, really awesome. And I can't help but look at those Harleys. So yeah, my attention always turns to them, and then I have to ask the question, what will I get from those that I don't have on the bike I have? So I have to continually ask those questions. So what I tend to lean towards now is not so much buying the new motorcycles brand new, but leaning towards buying used, kind of beat up motorcycles that I could play with, I could get running again, and then get them back on the road. And if I want to tinker with them and, you know, customize them, I can do that. That to me intrigues me more than anything. And this pandemic kind of threw a little wrench into my plans. I don't know if you know this, but I actually had at one time, I was talking to a guy about picking up his V-Star, or I'm sorry, not his V-Star, but he had a Yamaha Virago, and I was going to pick it up. I had a deal all pretty much mapped out for it, and the stay-at-home orders hit. So we just kind of lost touch and haven't pursued it really since. But I may reach out to him again soon and see if I can get that bike, because some of the things I'm really wanting to do, and that bike would be perfect for it, is I'm wanting to customize and build my own cafe racer. Nothing a whole lot of money, and nothing I'm looking to profit from, but just something I can put together, learn to paint, learn to do some body work, and do some detailed engine customization. Those are things that I'm really moving towards, and not so much a new bike. Although I have to tell you, the bike that Motocarry has, that Triumph, oh man, I love that bike, and I so want it. Doodle on a Motorcycle has one too, and those bikes they ride, especially Motocarries, I'm just, oh, it's a gorgeous, beautiful bike that I've always wanted. So kudos to her for owning such a bike. And you ought to check out her channel and see that bike, because she made a great choice, and I couldn't think of a nicer looking Triumph. So but you get the idea where I'm going to go with it. Is I could buy a new bike someday, but I'm really leaning towards getting those used bikes that I tinker with. And if you think about it, I have the ultimate used bike now, mine, because I'm always doing work on my bike. You know, you've heard about the stuff I've done this winter and spring, and I'll probably go back and do more in the future. You know, as I overhaul it and I work on it and just keep it running. I still have to change the oil in this too. But you get an idea of the different facets of things that I do.